Hello, everyone. Today, I bring you a touching story filled with lessons about love, sacrifice, and resilience. Imagine the most anticipated day of your life, your wedding, being transformed by an unexpected gesture from your loyal companion, Max. What seemed like just a perfect day turned into an unforgettable journey that changed Sarah and Michael's lives forever. If you love stories that touch the heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss anything, and let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. Now, let's dive into this incredible narrative that will move you from beginning to end. Sarah Matthews was just minutes away from experiencing what should have been the happiest day of her life. The sun was shining brightly outside, casting a warm and cheerful glow throughout her apartment. However, inside her home, the atmosphere was charged with nerves and excitement. The walls were adorned with fresh flowers, and the furniture was decorated with details reflecting the joy of the occasion. Her friends, like a team of fairy godmothers, were bustling about, taking care of the final preparations. Laughter and animated conversations filled the space, but Sarah's heart was enveloped in a storm of emotions. "You look beautiful, Sarah," exclaimed Anna, one of her best friends, as she adjusted the delicate veil framing the bride's face. Anna had a special knack for making people feel at ease, but in that moment, Sarah's insecurity was palpable. "Thank you, Anna. I just hope everything goes perfectly," Sarah replied, forcing a smile. Internally, however, the unease lingered. It was a mix of common anxiety and a nagging feeling that left her restless. She glanced at Max, her loyal German shepherd, who was lying in a corner of the room. Normally, he would be by her side, bouncing with joy amidst the commotion, but today he seemed distant, as if he sensed the tension in the air. "Max, come here, love," Sarah called, extending her hand in his direction. Max hesitated. His ears perked up, but his gaze conveyed confusion and concern. He slowly approached, but without the usual energy. "You're just jealous of all this fuss, aren't you?" She knelt down and gently stroked his head, trying to comfort him. Sarah's friends exchanged worried glances. "Maybe he's picking up on your anxiety, Sarah," Carla suggested softly. "Animals are more sensitive than we think." "Yeah, that must be it." "I'll be fine," Sarah replied, trying to convince herself. But the cheerful vibe around her only heightened her nervousness. She looked in the mirror and saw her reflection. The white dress, the flawless makeup, but behind it all was a whirlwind of uncertainties. "Come on, Sarah, it's time to go," Anna shouted enthusiastically. It was time to head to the ceremony. Sarah took a deep breath and, with one last look at Max, who was watching her with a worried expression, followed her friends out. On the way to the ceremony site, guests began to arrive. The scene was one of pure happiness, with smiles, hugs, and laughter echoing in the air. But during the photo session, something began to change. Sarah, radiant in her white dress reflecting the sunlight, couldn't help but notice that Max had moved away. He was lying in a corner, far from the commotion, as if he wanted to hide from the world. "Max, come here, buddy," Sarah called again, her heart tightening. But the dog merely looked at her, fixing his gaze on her without moving. The feeling of concern started to swell inside her. "Are you okay, Max?" She approached him, but he got up and moved away, as if trying to escape the situation. "Or is everything okay with your dog?" one of the guests asked, a worried look on their face. "He seems a bit different." "It's all under control. He's just a little shy today," Sarah said, attempting to mask her apprehension. But the truth was that something didn't feel right. Max's behavior, which had always been cheerful and protective, now kept her on alert. The festive atmosphere seemed to fade, giving way to a growing discomfort. "Sarah, you don't look well. Do you want a glass of water?" Anna asked, noticing her friend's unease. "Just a bit nervous," Sarah replied, forcing a smile but unable to hide the anxiety that overwhelmed her. "I just need to make sure Max is okay." As laughter and music continued, Sarah couldn't take her eyes off Max, who remained distant in his lonely corner. Her heart ached with each passing moment, and the thought that something was wrong tormented her. The celebration was supposed to be a moment of joy, but her worry for her faithful friend made everything feel much heavier. The sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the park, as Sarah and Michael walked side by side, watching Duke explore the surroundings. The atmosphere was alive. Children played, couples strolled hand in hand, and the sound of laughter filled the air. Yet, amidst all the joy, Sarah felt a mix of nostalgia and hope. "Look how much fun he's having," Sarah exclaimed, watching Duke chase a butterfly that floated gently by. The dog leaped and turned, trying to catch it with the same energy he always had. "It's amazing, isn't it?" Michael smiled, admiring the scene. "He seems so happy here. It's like he's found his place." "Yeah, it feels like he's at home," Sarah replied, a smile lighting up her face. The memories of Max were still fresh in her mind, but Duke's joy began to fill a bit of the void left by the loss. As they walked further, they came across a group of people sitting on the grass, laughing and chatting. Among them was a tall man with a guitar in hand who started playing a soft tune. The music floated through the air, creating an even more magical atmosphere. Duke stopped, as if mesmerized by the melody, and sat down, listening intently. "Look at that. He really likes the music," Michael commented, laughing. "It seems he's found a new passion." "It's true," Sarah agreed, watching Duke with a smile. "He looks so attentive. Just look at him sitting still." The music continued, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a wave of gratitude for the moment. The sound of the guitar mixed with the laughter of people around her made Sarah feel that, despite the pain, life continued to offer moments of beauty. She turned to Michael, who was watching her with a gentle gaze. "Thank you for being here with me," Sarah said, her voice heavy with emotion. "I don't know what I would do without you." "I will always be by your side, Sarah. You and Duke mean everything to me," Michael replied, holding her hand tenderly. The warmth of his touch comforted her, and she felt safe. After a while, the music came to an end, and the crowd began to applaud. Duke, waking from his musical trance, and got up and started running in circles, as if celebrating the performance. "He's a character." Michael laughed as Duke approached, wagging his tail. "Just look at how he acts. Can you see his personality starting to form?" "Yes. He's so playful and full of energy," Sarah said, petting Duke's head. "It's like he's saying he's ready for new adventures." The park's energy felt contagious, and feeling inspired, Sarah suggested, "How about we grab a snack and have a picnic? We can sit on the grass and enjoy the day." "Great idea. Let's find the perfect spot," Michael replied, excited. They walked to a nearby kiosk, where they bought sandwiches and some drinks. Duke, sensing something fun was about to happen, started bouncing around as if he were part of the celebration. "Easy, Duke," Sarah teased, laughing at the dog's excitement. "There's food for you too." After gathering their snacks, they found a spot on the lawn, under the shade of a leafy tree. As they settled down, Duke lay close by, watching everything with his bright eyes. "Look, Duke," Sarah said, holding out a piece of sandwich. "This is for you." She offered him some food, and Duke, tongue out and tail wagging, accepted the treat with joy. "He's quite the little glutton," Michael exclaimed, watching the scene with a smile. "I'm starting to think he might be more like you than I thought." "What do you mean?" Sarah asked, raising an eyebrow while taking a bite of her sandwich. "Because you also can't resist good food," Michael laughed, and Sarah, with her mouth full, shot him an indignant look, though she couldn't help but smile. The picnic continued amidst laughter and conversations about future plans. It was a moment of relaxation that brought a sense of renewal. Sarah felt that the clouds that had previously loomed over her were beginning to dissipate, and the sun's light was finally starting to shine in her heart again. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink, Michael turned to Sarah and said, "This was a great idea, love. I feel like we're starting to heal." "I feel that too," Sarah replied, looking at Duke, who was now lying with his head on her lap. "He's brought a new light into our lives." They exchanged glances, and in that moment, they knew that despite the pain, love would always find a way. And with Duke by their side, they were ready to embrace whatever the future held. Sarah watched Duke as he explored the backyard. The sunlight filtered through the leaves of the trees, casting dancing patterns on the ground. Duke, with his brown coat and big expressive eyes, looked so happy and curious, bringing a smile to Sarah's face, even though the shadow of losing Max still lingered. "Look at how much fun he's having," Michael exclaimed, sitting in the rocking chair and watching Duke chase after a butterfly fluttering in the air. "It seems like he's adapting really well." "Yes, he's adorable," Sarah replied, sitting next to Michael. It's like he's starting to understand that he finally found a home. As they watched, Duke suddenly stopped, his gaze fixed on a corner of the garden. He began digging with his paws, as if trying to uncover a hidden treasure. "What are you doing, Duke?" Sarah asked, laughing at the sight. "You're not looking for a bone, are you?" "If he finds something, I hope it's not a worm," Michael joked, getting up to approach the dog. "What do you think he's trying to find?" Duke finally stopped digging and turned his head, looking at them as if he were waiting for them to help him with his mission. Sarah and Michael exchanged knowing glances, realizing that this was a special moment, a sign that Duke truly felt at home. "Let's take a look," Michael said, crouching down beside Duke. "What did you find, buddy?" When Michael began to gently dig alongside Duke, they soon discovered that he was trying to reach an old toy that had been buried earlier. It was a stuffed teddy bear with holes and a worn smile that seemed to tell stories of many playful adventures. "Look at this," Sarah exclaimed, picking the teddy bear up from the ground. "You found a treasure." Duke started wagging his tail, as if he knew he had made a great discovery. He jumped around Sarah, eager to play. "Let's see him in action," suggested Michael, taking the toy and tossing it a little way off. Duke ran after it with all his energy, his joyful spirit filling the backyard. "He really has a vibrant personality, doesn't he?" Sarah commented, watching Duke play. "It's so nice to see him like this, so happy. It truly is amazing. He has a way of brightening the atmosphere, just like Max did," Michael said with a nostalgic smile. "It's as if he knows we need him, and that we need him too." The two continued watching Duke, who was now rolling in the grass, holding the teddy bear between his teeth and making a series of funny movements as he tried to shake off the toy that seemed too big for him. "Look how funny he is," Sarah laughed, holding her belly from laughing so hard. "He looks like a child getting into mischief." "That's true. The way he enjoys himself is contagious," Michael agreed. "It's as if he's telling us he's ready to make new memories." After a while, Duke got tired and lay down in the shade of a tree, panting and satisfied. Sarah and Michael approached him, and Sarah knelt down to pet his head. "You had fun, didn't you, Duke?" she asked, looking into the dog's eyes. "You're a real explorer." Duke looked up at her and gave her hand a gentle lick, as if trying to return the affection. Michael joined them, placing his hand on the dog's back. "Look how comfortable he is," he said, smiling. "That's a good sign." "It really is," Sarah replied, feeling emotional. "You know, I truly believe Max would be happy for us. He always wanted us to have a home full of love. And we can honor his memory by taking care of and loving Duke," Michael said, his expression serious yet full of tenderness. "Max was always a part of us, and now Duke is part of our new journey." The conversation flowed naturally, bringing up memories of Max and the hope that Duke represented. Sarah knew that nothing could replace the love she felt for Max, but she also understood that life went on, and Duke could be a new source of joy in their lives. "How about we go for a walk later?" Michael suggested, glancing at the blue sky. Duke would love to explore new places. "Great idea," Sarah replied, excited. "We can bring some water and snacks for us and for him." As the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and pink, Sarah and Michael felt that despite their loss, life still had many surprises to offer. Duke was a new beginning, a reminder that love can be renewed, and that each day brings the opportunity to create new memories. Their home was filled with a new energy, a blend of nostalgia and hope. With the adoption of Duke and Buddy, the environment that once reflected deep sadness now pulsed with life. The two dogs quickly became inseparable, running around the yard and exploring every corner of the house, as if they were determined to leave their own marks on this new life they shared. On a sunny morning, Sarah decided to prepare a special breakfast. As the aroma of fresh bread filled the kitchen, she could hear Michael laughing outside. He was playing with Duke and Buddy, trying to teach them to fetch the ball he had thrown. Michael's contagious laughter echoed, and Sarah couldn't help but smile at the joy emanating from that little moment. "Come on, boys, just fetch it," Michael encouraged, his voice full of enthusiasm. Duke seemed a bit hesitant, while Buddy was already bouncing around, eager for any sign of action. Sarah leaned closer to the kitchen door, watching the scene unfold. "Michael, you're doing it. They're learning quickly," she exclaimed, leaning out the door. Yeah, but Duke still needs a little nudge. Look how Buddy is already getting the hang of it, Michael replied, throwing the ball once more. Buddy dashed after it, his quick paws making a cheerful sound against the ground. Duke, however, hesitated, preferring to watch his new friend in action. Come on, Duke, you can do it, Sarah shouted, clapping her hands. Duke finally made up his mind, running towards the ball that Buddy had already caught. The brown dog seemed a bit more confident now, and Sarah felt a wave of joy as she witnessed the interaction between them. The day was starting to turn into something special. After breakfast, Sarah and Michael decided it was time to take the dogs for a walk in the park. They put leashes on Duke and Buddy, and the dog's excitement was palpable. Duke, still a little shy, seemed to be learning to let go of his insecurities, while Buddy radiated contagious energy. Ready, boys? Michael asked as he opened the door. The dogs, with their tails wagging, were ready for the adventure. Let's go, Duke. It's time to explore, Sarah said, holding Duke's leash with affection. The dog looked up at her, as if seeking approval, and in response, she gave him a gentle smile. The sun shone brightly as they headed to the park, and the light, cheerful atmosphere seemed to infect everyone around them. Upon arriving at the park, Sarah and Michael let the dogs run free. Buddy immediately bolted toward a group of children playing Frisbee D, while Duke hesitated once again, watching the scene with his big brown eyes. Come on, Duke, you can do it, Michael encouraged, calling him over. Buddy is having fun. Join him. With a little hesitation, Duke began to follow Buddy, and Sarah smiled as she saw the connection forming between the two dogs. She turned to Michael and said, "Look how he's loosening up. This is amazing." "Yeah, every day is a new achievement for him. I'm so glad we decided to adopt them," Michael replied, holding Sarah's hand as they watched the dogs play. The park was alive with activity, the laughter of children blending with the songs of birds. Duke, now more confident, began to chase after Buddy, showing signs of joy that had previously seemed distant. He joined the group of children, jumping and barking as Buddy led him in their antics. "You're doing so well, Duke," Sarah shouted, her voice filled with emotion. "That's right, keep it up." After a while, the dogs approached a small lake where some people were feeding ducks. Buddy, uncurious, started investigating the water, while Duke watched, a bit more cautious. Michael crouched down next to Duke and said, "You don't need to be afraid, Buddy. The water is just for playing. Come on." Sarah joined them, and together they encouraged Duke to approach the edge. "Look, Duke, Buddy is having a blast," she said, pointing to the dog who was already splashing his paws in the water, trying to reach a duck that was swimming peacefully. With a little hesitation, Duke stepped closer to the water and finally dipped a paw in. Sarah's smile widened as she saw the change in his demeanor. "That's it. You're doing so well. He's going to love getting wet. It's going to be a great day for him," Michael said, laughing as Duke seemed to relax more. Minutes turned into hours, and the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The dogs were exhausted but happy as Sarah and Michael headed home. Duke and Buddy settled in the back seat of the car, both panting with their tongues out, but with a sparkle in their eyes that reflected the joy of their new life. "Today was perfect," Sarah said, turning to Michael as they drove. "Duke really started to open up." "Yeah, and Buddy is a great influence on him. They're like two brothers," Michael replied, glancing at the dogs in the back seat. "I'm glad we decided to do this." "Me too," Sarah agreed, feeling that each day was bringing a little more healing. The love they shared was expanding, and while the pain of losing Max was still present, there was now room for new memories and joys. When they arrived home, Sarah and Michael looked at the dogs, who seemed so comfortable and happy. "Let's give them a nice dinner and then some cuddles," Sarah suggested as she opened the door. "For sure. They deserve it," Michael replied, already grabbing the food bowls. The home was now filled with life, and as Sarah looked at Duke and Buddy, she felt that despite the challenges, love would always find a way to blossom. As the sun slowly rose on the horizon, casting golden rays through the apartment window, Sarah and Michael sat in the living room, surrounded by Duke and Buddy. The energy of the new day felt promising, but the memory of Max still lingered in the air, like a shadow that never quite fades. Sarah was petting Duke, who lay beside her, while Buddy explored every corner of the space. "Do you remember the first time we brought Duke home?" Sarah asked, a nostalgic smile on her lips. He seemed so lost, but at the same time so grateful. Michael nodded, a sad smile forming on his face. Yeah, it was as if he had been waiting for us. And now look how he has adapted. He's so happy. Duke lifted his head upon hearing his name, his eyes gleaming with curiosity. He stretched, revealing his furry belly, as though he was ready to play. Buddy, who had found a forgotten toy, ran in circles trying to get Duke's attention. The scene made Sarah laugh. They already seem like best friends, she observed, her eyes sparkling. It's incredible how their connection was instant. Absolutely, Michael replied, watching the dogs with a tender gaze. They have an energy that reminds us of Max. It's like he's telling us everything will be okay. The feeling of loss was still palpable. But in that moment, surrounded by the innocence and joy of Duke and Buddy, something inside Sarah began to heal. The two dogs were becoming not just companions, but an essential part of the new life that she and Michael were building together. Shall we take them to the park today? Michael suggested, getting up and stretching. I know they love that. Great idea, Sarah replied, excitement beginning to take over. I'll prepare some treats for us to take. She quickly got up and headed to the kitchen. As she prepared the snacks, she heard Michael laughing from the living room. He was playing with the dogs, making funny noises that made Duke and Buddy jump and run. The sound was infectious and brought a smile to Sarah's face. You're doing a great job as a dog dad, she commented, looking at Michael as he tossed a toy for Buddy, who chased after it with all his energy. I need to do my best to keep the joy around here, he replied, winking at Sarah. And you know they love it when I act like a big goofball. Sarah laughed, imagining the scene of Michael running around the park, making antics to entertain the dogs. I'd love to see that. Maybe one day we can film it. Definitely. Let's make a video of our two clowns running around. I think we'll have a blast, Michael said, his voice full of enthusiasm. After a few minutes, Sarah returned to the living room, holding a container filled with the treats she had prepared. All set. Let's take them out before they decide it's time to throw a party in the apartment. The dogs seemed to understand it was time to go, and at the sight of their leashes, they began jumping and barking with joy. Sarah and Michael exchanged smiles, amused by the excitement of their new companions. Are you ready for a big adventure? Sarah asked, putting the leashes on Duke and Buddy. Let's go for an amazing walk. As they stepped out of the apartment, the fresh morning air enveloped them, and the city was slowly waking up. Upon arriving at the park, the sight of the green grass and trees full of life brought a sparkle to Sarah's eyes. She released the dogs, who immediately dashed across the lawn, barking in happiness. Look at how happy they are. I can't believe we're here doing this again, Michael said as he sat on the grass watching the dogs play. It's like life is giving us a second chance. Yes, that's true, Sarah replied, her heart feeling light. And I feel like Max would be so happy for us. He always wanted us to have love and joy in our lives. And now we have two amazing dogs to share that with. Let's do our best for them, Michael said, looking at the dogs with a sparkle in his eyes. So, on that sunny day, surrounded by nature and the joy of Duke and Buddy, Sarah and Michael felt renewed, ready to embrace the future and all the adventures still to come. The morning after adopting Buddy, the sun shone brightly, as if the universe were celebrating this new phase in Sarah and Michael's lives. The aroma of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, and the gentle sound of birds singing outside created an atmosphere of renewal and hope. Sarah moved around the house, her mind still processing the emotion of the adoption, while Duke and Buddy explored the backyard, their tails wagging with excitement. Look at them, Sarah exclaimed, gazing out the kitchen window. Duke and Buddy were playing tag, jumping and rolling in the green grass. It seems like they've become best friends in just a few hours. Michael, who was preparing toast, smiled at the happiness in Sarah's voice. It's amazing how quickly they understood each other. I think Buddy was waiting for us just like we were waiting for him. Yes, it's like he's always been a part of our family, Sarah said, still watching the two dogs. Do you notice how Buddy has the same energy that Max had? It makes me feel like he's here with us in a way. Absolutely. He's our new chance to create memories, and Max will always be in our hearts no matter what, Michael replied, taking the toast and placing it on a plate. He joined Sarah at the window, and they stood in silence for a moment, absorbing the scene before them. How about we take them for a walk in the park after breakfast? Sarah suggested, turning to Michael with a sparkle in her eyes. I want Buddy to see all the places Max loved. Great idea. And who knows? Maybe we'll make new friends in the process, Michael replied, pleased with Sarah's enthusiasm. Let's get their food ready and grab the leashes. After breakfast, they prepared the leashes and water bowls for the dogs. Sarah was radiant, her energy contagious, while Duke and Buddy seemed to sense that something fun was about to happen. With the dogs ready, they stepped outside, each holding a leash. Ready for the biggest adventure of the day? Sarah asked, pulling the leashes with a smile as she looked at the two dogs. Duke, with his gentle gaze, and Buddy, full of energy, seemed ready to explore the world. Let's go, boys! To the park! Michael said excitedly. As they stepped out the door, a fresh breeze greeted them, and the blue sky seemed to promise a perfect day. Upon arriving at the park, the scene was vibrant. Children playing, families picnicking, and other dogs running free. Sarah and Michael let Duke and Buddy off their leashes, allowing the dogs to explore the space. Duke, calmer and more observant, wandered off slowly, while Buddy took off running, racing in circles with contagious joy. Look how much fun he's having, Sarah shouted, laughing as she watched Buddy roll in the grass. It's like he's saying thank you for finally being free. He definitely feels at home, Michael replied, watching Buddy with satisfaction. And Duke seems happier being with him too. As the dogs played, a group of children approached, drawn in by Buddy's energy. A little girl with golden curls and a big smile crouched down and extended her hand. Can I pet the dog? Of course, he loves attention, Sarah said, smiling at the girl. This is Buddy. The girl began to pet Buddy, who immediately leaned in, wagging his tail. He's so cute. Can I take him to run? Yes, go ahead, but be careful. He's very fast, Michael warned, as he watched the girl run with Buddy, who seemed to be in a state of pure joy. Duke, on the other hand, seemed more interested in exploring the scents around him, sniffing every corner of the park. Sarah knelt beside him and stroked his head. You're a good boy too, Duke. Let's find a place to rest and enjoy the view. With a nod, Michael led Duke to a nearby bench where they could watch Buddy playing with the children. It's amazing how quickly they've adapted, Michael commented as he sat down next to Sarah. It really is. I truly feel like we're doing the right thing, Sarah replied, looking at Duke with affection. He deserves this. Hours passed, and the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Buddy finally tired out and returned to Sarah and Michael, panting and happy. Did you have fun, Buddy? Sarah asked as the dog settled at her feet. He's exhausted but content. Just look at his tail. Michael laughed as he watched Buddy stretch. I think he loved the park. And so did we, right? It was a perfect day, Sarah said, a smile on her lips. I'm so happy we have Buddy and Duke now. Max will always be a part of us, but there's room for more love. Absolutely, Michael agreed, wrapping his arm around Sarah. Let's make more memories together, as a family. With her heart full of gratitude and love, Sarah looked at the two dogs, realizing that while the loss of Max was still present, life continued to offer new opportunities to love and be loved. And in that moment, she knew their future would be bright, filled with new adventures and unbreakable bonds. The sun began to set, coloring the sky in shades of orange and pink as Sarah and Michael walked through the park with Duke and Buddy. It was a perfect late afternoon, and the gentle breeze carried the fragrance of blooming flowers along their path. The laughter of children playing nearby filled the air, and the sounds of joyful barks and paws created a symphony of happiness around them. Look at how much fun they're having, Sarah exclaimed, stopping to watch Duke and Buddy run together. Duke, with his brown fur and gentle gaze, seemed to have found new energy alongside the German Shepherd, whose eyes sparkled as if he had rediscovered the joy of life. Michael paused beside her, his eyes fixed on the dogs. It's incredible how well they hit it off so quickly. They seem like they've known each other for years. Sarah smiled, feeling happiness warm her heart. I think they really need each other. They've both been through so much. It's as if they know they have each other now. As the dogs continued to play, Sarah and Michael began to walk more slowly, savoring the moment of peace that surrounded them. The feeling of a new beginning was palpable, and the pain of losing Max was starting to be balanced by the joy that Duke and Buddy brought into their lives. Do you remember how Max loved to run around here? Sarah asked, glancing at the spot where Max used to play. The memory brought a smile to her face, but also a hint of sadness. Michael nodded. remembering Max's antics. Yeah, he always seemed so happy when he was running. I'll never forget how he would jump and play with the falling leaves in autumn, and how he would sit beside us, as if to say, "I'm here, don't forget me," Sarah commented, her voice soft, almost like a whispered memory. They both fell silent for a moment, allowing the memories to dance in their minds. But soon, the sounds of Duke and Buddy playing brought the lightness back into the air. "Look, they're trying to get the same ball." Michael laughed, watching as the two dogs stretched, their front paws nearly touching as they competed for the ball rolling gracefully across the grass. Sarah couldn't help but laugh too. They look so determined. It's amazing how life goes on, isn't it? Yes, and it's a sign that we're ready to move forward, even though the pain of loss is still there, Michael replied, placing his hand on Sarah's back, a gesture of comfort and support. As the dogs continued to play, Sarah turned to Michael, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for always being by my side, even in the toughest moments. You're my safe harbor." Michael smiled, leaning in to kiss her gently. "And you're mine. Together, we can overcome any challenge. Max taught us that." The conversation flowed naturally between them, and the park seemed to reflect this new phase of their lives. Duke and Buddy appeared to be having so much fun that they didn't notice time passing. The sunlight gradually dimmed, and the temperature began to cool, but the warmth in Sarah and Michael's hearts was undeniable. "Shall we take the boys home and prepare a snack?" Michael suggested, pulling Sarah closer. "They deserve a special treat after all that activity." "Great idea," Sarah agreed, already imagining the smiles on the dogs' faces when they received a treat. "How about making homemade biscuits for them? I have a fantastic recipe." "I'd love that," Michael replied, his eyes shining with enthusiasm. "And maybe we could make something for us too. A romantic dinner at home. What do you think?" "I'd love that." Sarah smiled, her heart light at the thought. "Let's make it a special evening." As they headed home, Duke and Buddy ran alongside them, happy and excited. Life was renewing itself, and every step they took together was a reminder that even amid pain, love could blossom again. Sarah looked at Michael, her partner, and smiled, knowing that together they could face any challenge life threw their way. As the sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sarah and Michael found themselves at the park, accompanied by Duke and Buddy. The laughter of children playing nearby and the singing of birds created an atmosphere of serenity that contrasted with the internal turmoil both felt. Buddy's presence brought new energy to the couple's lives, yet the shadow of their loss of Max still lingered over them. "Look at how much fun Duke and Buddy are having," Sarah exclaimed, pointing at the two dogs running in circles, their tails wagging furiously. Duke, with his shy demeanor, seemed to have quickly adapted to the new arrival, while Buddy, with his contagious energy, tugged Duke into play. Michael smiled, watching the scene with a glimmer in his eyes. "It's wonderful to see them like this. You know, I really think Max would have approved of this arrangement." "I feel that way too," Sarah replied, her voice thick with emotion. "He was always so generous with his love. Now, it feels like we have the chance to share that again." As the dogs played, Sarah bent down to grab a tennis ball she had brought along. "Let's see if they like this," she announced, holding the ball out in front of Duke and Buddy. Both dogs stopped immediately, ears perked up, ready for action. "Ready, boys," Michael shouted, launching the ball with all his might. The yellow sphere soared through the air, and in the blink of an eye, Duke and Buddy dashed after it, their agile bodies moving in perfect sync. Sarah and Michael laughed, their joy echoing in the air. "Look at them run," Sarah commented, watching Duke retrieve the ball and bring it back to them. "He's so happy." "It's amazing how quickly they connect," Michael replied, admiring Duke's skill at catching the ball. Buddy seems to be adjusting well too. After several throws, the dogs grew tired and flopped down on the grass, panting and content. Sarah and Michael sat beside them, soaking in the moment. The sun was now almost hidden, and shadows stretched around them. "Do you remember when Max did this for the first time?" Sarah asked, looking at Michael with a nostalgic smile. "Of course. He always brought the ball back, but he never stopped running." Michael chuckled, reminiscing about Max's enthusiasm. "He was like a little ball of energy." "And how you used to get frustrated when he wouldn't drop the ball," Sarah teased, giving Michael a playful jab on the arm. "Oh, don't remind me," he replied, placing a hand dramatically on his chest. I almost lost my patience, but it was impossible to stay mad at him. The truth is, he brought so much joy to our lives, Sarah said, her gaze thoughtful. Sometimes, I miss him in every moment. I do too, Michael agreed, his voice softened by nostalgia. But I believe Max is still with us in a way. He brought us Buddy and Duke, and that's a gift. The sun finally set, and the sky was now draped in a blanket of stars. The temperature dropped a bit, and Sarah pulled her jacket closer around her. Michael, noticing, wrapped his arm around her. Shall we take a stroll before we head home? He suggested, glancing at the dogs who were getting up, more animated than ever. Absolutely, let's go, boys, Sarah shouted, encouraging Duke and Buddy to move. What followed was a leisurely walk through the park, with the dogs exploring every nook and cranny, sniffing everything in their path. Have you ever thought about how magical it is to see the world through their eyes? Michael remarked, watching the dogs race ahead. They are so curious and free. It's true. They remind us to appreciate the little things, Sarah said, watching Duke stop to sniff a flower. Sometimes, I wonder if we as humans forget how to do that. It's easy to get lost in the routine, but having Duke and Buddy helps us remember, Michael replied, gazing at Sarah with affection. They bring a new perspective. As they walked, a comfortable silence allowed them to reflect on what they had experienced and what was yet to come. The pain of their loss was still present, but it was accompanied by a new hope, a new chance to love. Are you happy, love? Michael asked, breaking Sarah's thoughts. I am, she answered, smiling. I'm happy that we're together and that we have Duke and Buddy. They are an important part of our journey. And they always will be, Michael said, holding Sarah's hand as they walked under the starry sky. Let's continue to honor Max and create new memories with our new friends. Yes, let's, Sarah agreed, feeling lighter. Max will always be a part of our lives, but now we have the opportunity to give and receive love again. The dogs, running and playing around them, embodied this new phase. And as the night deepened, Sarah and Michael knew that together they could face any challenge life presented, always with love, courage, and Max's memory in their hearts. Duke, the elderly dog, seemed rejuvenated, while Buddy, with his typical playfulness, bounced alongside them, almost as if he were dancing. Look how happy he is, Sarah laughed, watching Buddy run in circles. Yeah, and Duke seems more animated too, Michael observed, noticing how the older dog was more alert, his eyes shining with newfound energy. When they arrived at the park, the vast green space was filled with other dogs playing and people laughing, creating a vibrant and welcoming atmosphere. Sarah unhooked Duke's leash, and he hesitated for a moment, as if assessing the situation. With a gentle encouragement from Sarah, he finally launched himself onto the grass while Buddy raced ahead, eagerly exploring every corner with contagious excitement. Come on, Duke, Sarah called, clapping her hands. Come play. Duke, a little slow to catch on, started to chase after Buddy, and the scene filled Sarah's heart with joy. Michael moved closer to her, wrapping his arms around her as they watched the dogs. It's wonderful to see this, isn't it? Michael said, looking into Sarah's eyes. Yes. It feels like we're giving them, and ourselves, a new chance, Sarah replied, feeling a wave of emotion. Max would be so happy to see this. He will always be with us, Michael affirmed with a gentle smile. The love he brought into our lives doesn't just disappear. As the dogs frolicked, Sarah and Michael decided